Microsoft Paint. We all know about it. It's been around forever, but I guarantee there's a lot of features and stuff in there that you had no idea about. So I'm going to go over a bunch of hidden features and functionality, as well as some other really cool stuff that's more hidden in plain sight that you just never noticed. And basically all of these will work in both the Windows 10 and newer Windows 11 version of Paint. So let's get into it. Starting off, we have the ability to make a custom brush, sort of. So the first thing you do is draw anything or select anything, and then you're going to want to hold Shift and then start to click and drag around, and it will keep drawing and repeating that thing as if whatever that is a brush. And you do have to hold the Shift before you click. You can't do it the other way around. Next up, there is a sort of Etch-A-Sketch mode, if you remember those, where if you click to start drawing with any tool and then you hold space and then use the arrow keys, it will actually draw as if you move the mouse in those straight lines. So you basically use the arrow keys to draw. Here's one that could actually really come in handy, and that is how to override the maximum brush size. In previous versions of Paint, even just in Windows 10, there were 4 different brush sizes. However, you can hold down Control and then press the numpad plus button or minus button to increase or decrease the size of the brush as well, and this will go larger than the largest of those brushes. Now, in the latest versions of Paint, you can just use the slider to get to the max. However, this trick still will come in handy if you're drawing a shape, where the outline option still only has those few options up to 8 pixels. However, if you press Control and the plus key, it will indeed let you make the border thicker than those default options. So still is useful in the latest versions too. Now, one really funny fun fact is that in the Windows XP version, it seems like there was no limit to the size that you could make the brush. You could just keep holding the plus key with Control and it would just become a massive brush. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case. All right, now next up are a bunch of secret and hidden functionality having to do with the 2-color modes. Because Paint has always let you select 2 different colors, but maybe you didn't understand what this was for or the full extent of it. The basic usage is if you're drawing and you left click, it will use the first color. However, if you right click to draw, it uses the second color. And I'll point out that in the toolbar menu, which one you select does not actually determine which one gets used. It's still left click and right click. Which one is selected only affects which one gets set when you click a color in the color panel. However, in the latest versions, you can simply right click one of the colors and it automatically assigns it to the second color. The eraser tool also can use these colors, believe it or not, where if you right click using the eraser, it actually acts as a sort of overwrite tool where it replaces any pixels of the first color with the second color, and any other colors aren't affected. Also, for the eyedropper tool, left clicking assigns it to the first color and right clicking assigns it to the second. When drawing a shape, it will use the first color as the outline and the second color as the fill, assuming the outline and fill are set to be used. And another really useful trick is that if you're drawing by holding either the left or right mouse button, if you then click the other mouse button, so you're pressing both at the same time, it will cancel that drawing stroke. And this works whether you're drawing with the first or second color. Next up, there's some cool stuff having to do with the shape tools. In this shapes section, most of these are just static shapes that you can resize as you would expect. However, 2 of them are special and work differently. First is the curve tool. When you click and drag this at first, it will just look like the line tool. But with this one, you can then click 2 more times to create a curve. On the next click, you'll notice that it basically pulls the curve towards wherever the mouse is. And it doesn't actually matter where you start clicking to hold down. It only matters where you release the mouse. In other words, if you click on the line and drag the mouse up to some place, it will look exactly the same as if you just clicked that final location from the get-go. Now, if you go to click the curve a second time, things will change. Now, instead of that curve that you applied the first time applying to the whole line, it basically only applies to the first half closer to the starting point. And whatever you do while clicking and dragging for this second time, that will get applied only to the half closer to the ending point. To better see this, for example, if you draw the line from left to right, and then for the first point, you click directly above the center, and then the second one you draw directly below, then you'll notice that the first half will go up and the right half will go down. But then if you draw the line starting from the right to the left, you'll notice it looks the opposite. So knowing this might make this tool a little bit more useful. You can make some other interesting looking curves besides just like a sine wave. Next, the other special tool is the Polygon tool. You can sort of think of it like the line tool, except each segment stays connected to the previous one. But importantly, after you stop drawing the shape, it will always connect back to the original starting point to create a closed shape. Now, you can finish the shape in a few different ways, I found. One is that if you draw a point very close to that original starting point, it will automatically snap and connect to that. It also seems to end it if you double click after making a point, and it will complete it if you click anywhere outside of the canvas, including any other tools, such as adding a layer or something like that. As a general tip for all the shapes, you can hold shift while clicking and dragging and it will keep it proportional. And for the line tool specifically, if you hold shift, it will snap the line to 45-degree angles. And this also applies when using the Polygon tool and the curve tool, at least when you initially draw that. All right, moving on, another thing you might not have realized is all the different formats you can save as from Paint. If you go to File and then Save As, you'll see this Other Formats option. And then if you look in the Save As dropdown, you'll see a whole bunch more. Usually, you should probably just save as PNG since it's lossless. And for graphics, like you'd be drawing in Paint, it usually ends up with the smallest file size anyway. But these other types might come in handy at some point if for some reason you need an image type of one of these types. You can sort of use this as like a rudimentary file conversion tool. A funny thing I noticed though, it seems like you don't actually have to click the Other Formats option to get all of these. They all seem to appear regardless of which Save As option you choose. All right, moving on, we have the transparent selection option. Now, with the latest versions of Paint that has layers and transparency, this is kind of obsolete, so you should probably keep it off. However, for older versions, it might come in handy. Basically, what it does is if you select a region and then drag and move it around, it will not include any pixels in that selection that were the same as the background color. So it's sort of like a really rudimentary background removal tool, kind of, but it has to be the exact same color. So you'll notice that on a lot of edges, it still leaves some there if it was like partially blended. So it doesn't look perfect, but still. Here's another neat little feature, which is the View Thumbnail option. This opens a separate little window that shows the full image and it updates in real time. So I imagine this would be useful if you're drawing something super far zoomed in. It lets you see how it makes it look with the full image. And next, why don't we just go over a bunch of things that aren't really secret, but are still good to know, or you might not have noticed. Another good thing to know is if you go to resize an entire image as a whole, Paint will use interpolation for scaling, so the graphics will not really look sharp, they'll look blurry. This method of scaling usually looks better for photographs, but for graphics, not so much. However, if you select only a certain region and then resize that, it will use nearest neighbor scaling and it'll still look sharp. And the same thing seems to happen if you stretch a selection. Next, the Control-A shortcut to select all works in Paint. It'll select the entire canvas. In the color picking panel, at least for the latest version of Paint, that bottom row that seems to be empty is actually for any colors that you set manually through the special color picker. You can also select custom colors to add and save in that color picker panel, but realize that these will reset and go away if you close and reopen Paint. And another good thing to know is if you press the Alt key, it will show you different shortcut keys that you can activate by pressing Alt and then those letters, and it will take you to that tool. So maybe good to know for the ones you use the most often. So I would be curious to know which ones you knew about, which ones you didn't, and if there's any that I missed, definitely let me know. I think I got all the really interesting ones, but who knows? If you liked the video, you know what to do, and here is today's AI slop call to action.
Hurry! You have to absolutely destroy the like button, or this will happen!
If you want to keep watching, here's a couple similar videos I've made in the past talking about secrets of Windows Notepad and secrets of the Windows Calculator. I'll put those links both right there you can click on. And if you want to subscribe, I try to make videos about twice a week, Wednesday and Saturday, so it should be worth it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.